Welcome to the Lovecars on the Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiff Needell, and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to Lovecars on the Grid, your global motorsport podcast roundup. On the grid today, Max falls out with George, Lewis falls out with himself, and everybody falls out with the FIA. It was all happening in Qatar. Plus, all the latest on Formula 2, Formula 1 Academy, and Formula E kicks off as well. But where do we start? What do we get? I tell you what, Tim, it started off quite well because we were told finally we're getting another team on the grid. So Cadillac were coming into Formula 1. So really positive start to the week. And then it just seems to go on tits up from then.
I mean, I don't know what went on with the Andretti's. I can't be bothered to try and find out. It was something weird, wasn't it, with the Andretti name? Quite nice news for all the little team, the little 10 teams, little clique. They're all getting a £45 million bonus for selling their 11th
Crazy
team.
Crazy money.
I hope it's phased out because obviously they're not going to lose £45 million of prize money in day one, are they? Funny enough, it's not biased towards the bigger teams because obviously someone like Williams or Hassel or Sauber, they don't get that much prize money because it's split throughout the top 10 teams. But anyway, they're all getting £45 million. It's compensation.
Because I saw Horner was interviewed and he said, well, we welcome it as long as we don't have to pay for them. But surely it's such a ridiculous amount of money. And this whole Andretti thing as well, just don't get me started on that.
No. But then, so it was good news, but then it all started tumbling downhill. This FIA business, because this Jeanette Tan had been announced as the Formula 2 race director after, they sacked the previous Formula 1 one. So who was it? Rui Marquez took over Formula 1. And lovely news that Jeanette Tan, and then she was sacked before she even did a day's work virtually. So Qatar, that meant Rui Marquez had to do both Formula 1 and Formula 2. And this is all coming from Ben Sulayem, sackings, people he seems to fall out with, because he then sacked the race director, didn't he? Tim Mayer, very well respected. He's been a race director race steward for many years. I think he fell out at COTA. I think he's a COTA man and had another job at COTA. And of course, COTA got a big fine for the track invasion. And I think there was a bit of something kicked off there. Okay, anyone challenges Mr. Sulayem, you're out. Then the drivers sent a letter to him saying, well, we'd like to know what's going on here because it affects us. And, we were changing things and rules. And then he just told them it was none of their business. They could all disappear. And I love it.
He's got to go. He's got to go, Tiff.
But he always says, I'm a driver. I was a driver. He was a rally driver. Now, this is no disrespect to rally people, just quickly, because I'm going to explain why. So he was successful. He won the Middle East Rally Championship. He was like the big fish in a small pond, and he won that 2 or 3 times. But he was a rally driver. He was never a racing driver, so he doesn't know anything about overtaking or coming alongside, So how can he be an expert? He says, I'm a driver. But you never race.
Hang on, let's just. My reasons are a bit different, but he is the head of the FIA, so you don't necessarily need to be any sort of driver.
No, but he says he is. But he always says it. He always likes to point out that I was a driver. I know about driving. I was a driver.
Yeah.
Now you bounced around in the sand somewhere. Nothing, anything at all like going around Abu Dhabi in a Formula 1 car and overtaking people. Luckily his time is up. His 5 years run out. I think it's next year, if I've got my sums right. So he probably won't be there in a year's time, but he's going to be with us.
Just thinking about that next year, but make a decision now because he's not the right person for it, in my opinion. And next year we have got on paper probably the most epic season we've had for as long as I can ever remember. 4 teams really up there, and then the other teams aren't that far away. And if they mess up with this ridiculous stewarding, it's just going to mess up the whole year, which is going to be epic, hopefully.
Yeah, if they muck about with next year, it really could be one of the greatest things. So they all arrived in Qatar with a bit of tension in the air, And there's this another new ruling, which is funny. This is typical of what the FIA do. Because after Sainz crossed the pit lane entry white line in front of Lewis in, where the hell were they, Las Vegas, and they pointed out that's legal. They said that is actually legal. You can cross that line, but not the one out. And I don't know what the different regulations are. So they decided for some unknown reason to put a cone in now, halfway up, so you can cross the white line before it'll cone, but not after the cone. And in the Formula 2 race, so this is affecting the Formula 2 race, we'll talk about it later on. So Gabriele Bortoleto, who's was leading the championship, had a 10-point lead, I think, 10.5-point lead arriving in Qatar. There was a bit of confusion because they're not allowed to pit under virtual safety cars, unlike Grand Prix cars. So the virtual safety car came out late. I think Bortoleto thought he could get into the pits before the virtual safety car was enforced. And then as he's halfway up the pit lane, the team said, no, you can't pit. So he went back on the track, just like Carlos Sainz did. But he went back on the track after the cone. Now, so he got a 5-second penalty, which means his win got turned into a third place, which lost him 10 points, which means he now goes to Abu Dhabi with only half a point. It's a huge effect on the Formula. But what's the point of making a rule like that? There's a pit wall there. If you hit the pit wall, that will penalise you quite sufficiently. So, but
this overreacting just shows incompetence. And
we must have another rule. Yeah, we must have another rule.
Every time there's a controversy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If they're going to do that, wait until the end of the season. Yeah. And if they really do, if they spend some time and effort and review it, and if it really is a problem, then put the cone there or do whatever you need to do, but not reactively within a week. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And we will come on to Formula 2 because that was quite exciting as well. But I want to talk about Qatar. I mean, the circuit itself, Qatar, I've been there many times. I started going to Qatar in 1991, a long time ago. And it's phenomenal. And in terms of what they've got, the money's no object. Just the most incredible place in terms of the museum and the buildings. And they've got this bang average racetrack. I don't understand. They've got more money than sense in the nicest possible way. And they've got a bang average facilities and racetrack. But then they turn around and say, oh, it was sold out all weekend. Yeah. And you see about 20, 30
And how many would sold out be anyway? There's only got grandstands down the main straight and the last corner and the first corner. There's nothing out. I did read it's a Tilke track, which explains a lot. One great big long straight, loads of corners. And apparently it's the shape of Qatar or something, or it's the shape of something that was designed.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There's also to something it was designed for a motorbike track, and the motorbike boys seem to think it's pretty good. They could overtake.
Well, I can understand.
They could overtake on about 3 times a lap. Whereas this dreaded one big long straight, and then
because you can't overtaking spot.
Yeah, well, you can't follow close enough because by the time you've gone through all the bloody corners, you're 0.7 behind or 0.8, and that's not enough. You can't stay on the gearbox.
Well, they shortened the straight by 170 meters, which seems a lot. So it was so dull. Other than
to be fair,
we'll go through it. But other than the safety cars and the virtual safety cars, it would have been horrific. But there's always safety cars at Qatar.
I mean, to be fair, I think that they had big drive-bys last year. So I think, to be fair, it was too easy to overtake last year. So they moved it by, what was it, 187? Where did they come up with these exact numbers? I have no idea. Yeah. I mean, if they'd made it maybe 10 meters more, because there were some side by sides in the overtaking zone. Yeah. It just wasn't quite enough. you could get halfway alongside and then just get weaved at and blocked. Yes, I mean the track goes just corner after corner. It's so bland. If you cut to a shot somewhere on the track or another race going on midfield, you've no idea which corner.
You got no idea. Absolutely no idea. They all look the same. You're right.
There's no jeopardy at all. So the Formula 2 boys were just going off, flying off. You make a wild overtaking maneuver down the outside, knowing that you could just shoot off, come back on again, get a track limit tick, and you're 3 out of 4 and something. No, so you never. There's no sort of corner there that excites you. There's nothing.
I can get that. I can get the how sterile it is. But what I can't get with any racetrack in the world. Why would you want a racetrack where after turn 1 on the last lap who's won the race? Why would you want that? You want to have the last few corners and opportunity, clearways at Brands Hatch. You know that you can get in there, you can overtake, or on the exit of clearways, you can. There's always the great racetracks have got jeopardy all the way to the end. But this, you knew with Formula 2, you knew with Formula 1 Academy, you knew with Formula 1. Once they're around turn 1, they've probably won the race. Almost certainly won the race.
So change the tracks. I can get a pencil. You can straight line. You can miss out like 5 corners. Make it halfway around the lap. Make a straight line. They actually had that race at was it Bahrain where they had a shorter track one year? It was when George should have won when he had his debut in Mercedes, didn't he? He didn't win because he got a yellow flag at the wrong time. But they had a shorter version, which worked, in my opinion. So you've just got to make sure there's some hairpins halfway around, that can make an overtaking spot. But actually, talk about the track. It's an interesting thing in qualifying. So the sprint race sort of went smoothly. It seemed true to form. Everybody was going to. McLaren were first and third on the grid and had an easy way. The racing was all simple and simple. The only interesting thing qualifying that George Russell qualified second. And he thought he would have the better. He confused his engine mapping. This is more about what you learn about the things they do with these cars.
Incredible.
So he went through the turn 13, 14, 15, the most challenging, almost flat out in top gear. Well, not top gear. I think they're using seventh gear at that point. But he decided on his demon qualifying lap when he was up to stay in eighth gear. To go through. But the problem is that confused his engine mapping, because he got to the next corner and the engine mapping thought, hold on a minute, you haven't been through the previous corner because you're in eighth gear and not seventh gear. And so it changes how much power it gives you, because it's then either, keeping power back in the back, whatever, anyway. And Alonso at the same time, Alonso, the first race in the main Grand Prix later on, he was moaning like, man, we had the same problem every time. And it wasn't just lack of straight line speed. It was because after a pace car start, or the start of the race, the engine mapping changes. So it's got a different mapping that gives him more power later. I don't know, anyway. The fact the mapping of his engine, it wasn't like straight line speed was the problem. They're so high tech, it's unbelievable. But no, the sprint race was all normal because Perez didn't get through Q1, so that was normal in qualifying for sprint. Max only qualified sixth. Lewis was seventh, 0.4 slower than George, already beginning to hate himself, already beginning to criticise himself. Lewis then in seventh. And then, of course, at the end, the two McLarens sorted out George, and then frustrated him by Lando backing up to give Piastri the DRS, which is a good modern day racing team tactic. And then Lando giving Piastri the win.
I don't mind that. I don't mind that, by the way.
Nor do I. So it was all lovey-dovey. The sprint race all went to normal. The only other thing going on at the back was Checo Perez, having qualified so badly, decided to have a test session and decided to start from the end of the pit lane. This was lovely. Horner was going mental because Colapinto was also starting from the pit lane, lined up behind Perez. And Checo decided, because he was only going out for test session, why did he want to follow the pack into turn one? He wanted clean air to do some testing. So he didn't drive off at the pit lane when the racing went past him and Colapinto overtook him. Oh, dear.
So Checo becomes the first person ever in the history to be overtaken in a pit lane. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. And then we'll come on to the main race. We'll talk about the sprint race first. But again, Perez, whilst we're on the subject of him, where he was warming his tyres, and he said he had a massive over-delivery of the engine when he was warming the tyres, which spanned the car out. But surely that means your accelerator you put it down too much. And the engine's not just going to deliver, is it? I don't know. But and then he span around whilst he's warming his tyres under a safety car, which is just so bizarre. So bizarre.
But he did get into top 10 in the Grand Prix race. That was so Grand Prix qualified. We sort of got through the sprint without too much drama. And McLaren looked like it was going to be their weekend. Ferrari were a bit lackluster. What they finished fourth and fifth, didn't they? Lewis sixth, Max eighth. So then we come to qualifying for the main event, and boom, Perez isn't out in Q1. What's going on? And Perez didn't go out in Q2, and Perez got into Q3. And whatever he'd learned or they'd done in that, they must have either they just guessed new settings, because there's Max on pole.
I don't think Formula One teams, you're just talking about engine mapping and high tech. They don't just guess the settings, do they? They learn from.
They just said they changed loads of things, but I mean, it is the most brilliant bit of engineering story of the year, almost, to go from absolutely Max rubbishing the car and it's completely undrivable. Fair play to Red Bull. Still have to point out Checo. I'm sorry, Checo, but although you got into Q3, you were 0.9 of a second slower than Max in the same car to qualify. Well, he qualified ninth, didn't he, for the Grand Prix? Lewis continued to say, "I can't drive. I'm useless." Qualified
He's really,
sixth.
I know, he's really,
Point four
really
behind
down on
George.
himself, wasn't he?
I know. So he was,
I'm
it's a
slow.
shame.
I'm really
I
slow.
know.
And Davidson, who I really rate, we spoke about him incredibly highly. He said something that I hope isn't true because I'm a big Lewis fan, and he said it happened to him in Formula One, and all of a sudden he started getting sort of in his 40s or towards his 40s, and all of a sudden the younger guys were faster, and he couldn't work out what it was, but they were just faster, and he thinks maybe it is, and maybe I've been a bit blinkered because I'm a big fan, and maybe it is the fact that George is much better because he's younger and fitter, and Lewis has lost it, which I hope he doesn't. I hope he goes to Ferrari next year and wins another championship, the 8th that he deserves. He should have had in 2021.
I think Ant's half right. That's the trouble. I think he's just lost his mojo. Someone was writing in one of the magazines about how getting your tyres in the right temperature for qualifying laps is so crucial, and George goes out there and the car might not feel that good, but then he goes through that not feeling good barrier, gets the perfect tyre temperature, gets the laps in. And Lewis I think he's pretty very sad about leaving Mercedes. I think he's probably in his mind, he's still, have I done the right thing? And, going to Ferrari. So he's just, drivers, it's as soon as you haven't got your mojo working, you're not, you lose a tenth and 4 tenths, come easily. So I'm sure he'll be back with Ferrari. I'm sure it'll be great. I'm sure we'll see some wonderful Ferrari up front. Well, as fast as Ferrari can go. But anyway, so Max gets his amazing pole position. Where did we end up? Lewis was 6.4, as I said, down. The Ferraris are having a quiet weekend. But George, we then have the next scene of the weekend when George protests Max for holding him up on their preparation laps. And Max was going, this is again about getting these tyres into the right window for your car. And, Max was cruising around at 20 miles an hour and, in fact, was going too slow for the race director. They are given this, what's it called when you have to do sector by sector, delta.
The delta.
And Max was slower than the delta. And but George apparently went mental. So we had this huge news the next morning that Max has completely lost all respect for George. George, I've never seen anyone so angry with the stewards, forcing them to, make a decision. And of course, he lost his pole position. It was a big change around because pole position was on the left-hand side, the cleaner part of the track. And so it wasn't that easy to start from second. Christian Horner later said George was hysterical. So the great thing is this is really building up all part of next year's build-up. These two having no respect and hysterical, hating each other, is just what we need to make 2025 even sparkier.
Well, I can quote something so Max said this on camera in Dutch to the Dutch news TV. He said he's unbelievably two-faced. He said he's incredibly two-faced. What he comes across as being this gentleman and really fun and jovial on camera, but in real life he's not like that. And Max said he better just fuck off. I don't want anything to do with him. So I've never liked Max, you know that, and I've come to really love and respect Max this season. Well, yeah. I'll tell you another thing about Max. Jenson Button, another person I've always admired. I think he's brilliant and he's a real gentleman. You've raced with him many times at Goodwood. He said, get this. Now, this is just how can Jenson say this? He said Lando and because he was asked about this whole thing, would Max be as quick in the cars? He said Lando and George are as good as Max.
Yeah.
They're not as good as Max. They're not as good as Max. They are not as good as Max. Max won in the third worst car. This is the first.
Oh, don't you start this third
in over
worst
40.
Car. You're on this
40 years that a driver has become world champion in a car that's come third or less in the Constructors champion.
You've been reading Damon Hill's tweets, haven't you? You've been reading Damon Hill's tweet. Did you not see me rejecting this, pointing out that he may have been in the third worst points scoring car? That doesn't mean the third worst car because there was only one driver scoring points with it. So yes, it's third. In the
Perez is eighth in the overall. I'll give you that. And actually, we forget very quickly. We forget very quickly, but don't forget the first half of the season, the Red Bull was unbeatable for Max.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt.
I stand corrected.
Yeah. So using that third in the Constructors is completely a red herring. However, I agree.
Lando and George are not as good as Max.
I agree that he's definitely had the third worst car from the second half of the season, except for this weekend when he had the best car and he's back again, Well, maybe not the best car. Who knows? Maybe he's out driving. Maybe Max is so brilliant and Perez is where the car really should be, but Max lifts it from the back to the front. It could be true, but you can't make these statements about the third worst car and all this bollocks. Just look at the end of the season's results. Anyway,
I value your input, Mr. Needell. Thank you.
So at least Damon Hill also reacted to my tweet saying, "Oh yes, yeah." What's the phrase about statistics? The
I don't know.
You say it's all anyway. They're load of bollocks.
Oh, yeah.
There is a phrase, isn't there, about statistics being so we came to the race anyway, having got through so George is on pole. Made the best start, but then Max just seemed to, in the second phase, they said, it came halfway up the inside of George, so George had to give way to Max. Then Lando came up the inside of Max on the way out and looked like he might go around the outside of on the turn 2, and then after that, the excitement was all over. That was it. The race was then over. So we're then thinking it's going to be the most boring race out. And again, going back to the track being too many corners, they soon spread out by over a second because they couldn't follow close enough.
But you say that, but straight away we had safety car. There was lots of spins.
Well, they all fell off. They're hitting each other. Well, they're so desperate around turns 1 and 2 to get a a place out. They all hit each other. Who went out? Colapinto went out. It was actually Hulkenberg's fault. When Hulkenberg clattered...
He went down the middle.
He clattered into...
Doesn't matter.
Second RB, one of the RBs, and the RB hit Colapinto. So Colapinto's now no longer the next best thing since sliced bread, I'm afraid.
I think that's the 16th or 17th or 18th time that Williams have crashed in Formula 1 this year. That's just unbelievable. I feel so sorry for them. Their bill must be ridiculous.
Well, the only good thing about the racing, there was some great stuff from sort of 7th place downwards. The midfield pack were having Yuki made a great start in the RB, but then his RB was obviously slow. They weren't good last weekend, although he did beat his teammates. That's the main thing for him, to get the Red Bull drive. So he held up a pack. So there's a lot of interesting stuff to watch on telly, but the front 6 or 7 were just spread out. This is dull race, until a mirror fell off. So... I couldn't believe it. A mirror fell off. So we're all looking at the mirror, aren't we, on telly? And there was one time when the leaders went past and there was nobody else on the whole straight. In the olden days, the marshal had just gone out and picked it up. Done. I mean, yes, it's all health and safety. And yes, the marshals will be protected. But if every post had a senior observer and a number 1 marshal, say from Monaco, so you should employ all the Monaco marshals throughout... he would have checked, he'd done his whistle, he said, yeah, mate, pick that up, back again. Job done. The rule book says no, you must have no marshals on the track under any situations, no common sense. The rules say nobody's coming. We see it sometimes when drivers park on right by an exit where they can pull the car back in, don't they? And they're way off the track, and they're under yellow flags, so they could just pull the car. But no. So we're running to the rule book, but for some reason, the debris wasn't enough for the VSC to be launched. And they say today that even if they launched the virtual safety car straight away, the cars were too close together for them to get out and remove the mirror. Well, they're doing about 50 miles an hour. They're in the
absolute rubbish. It's over 3 miles, the track. Even if they're doing 100 miles an hour, they've got enough time to get there. It's ridiculous.
I don't know how many laps it was. The thing about the Lando's punishment, which he did break the rule, so yes, even he agrees he has to be punished. He broke the rule. But bizarrely, I don't know whether it's the first lap or the second lap or the third. I don't know how long the yellows have been out for when he broke the rule. There's some confusion, which I don't know all the details, that someone waved a flag, it wasn't, there were lights flashing, or there were. There's a little bit of controversy or confusion about when the yellows came out. And then the really good journalist Mark Hughes, writing in a column this morning, has pointed out that Max, before the yellow zone, lifted off, seeing the yellow zone, which is why Lando, who I know didn't lift off, I'm not disputing that because everyone agrees, caught up that bigger lump. And then as soon as he'd done the lift and had been caught, he's then on the radio saying Lando closed up on me in the yellows. Because in fact, apparently the closing might have been happening before the yellows. Even though, anyway, it's another bit of the story. But I mean,
Well,
it was
all very
on the radio.
confusing.
Max did come on the radio, said, "I've been caught up in a yellow zone." So Max did highlight it.
It looked like, and it looked like that one of the marshals waved double yellows on the pit straight. So no flashing yellow lights.
Okay.
That was the first thing that Max saw as he was going past at 190 miles an hour. But Lando didn't, and I don't blame him for not noticing that, because you're looking for the yellow lights, you're looking for your steering wheel, the crowd of waving flags. It could have been.
Well, don't they have official yellows on the dashboards now? I don't know whether.
But that's the contentious thing, is that he's saying that they didn't come up. He believes they didn't come up in time for when he passed that incident. So, but he took it on the chin. But he became quite petulant and obstructive in all the interviews afterwards on his radio to his Lando.
Was he?
Yeah,
I didn't hear any of that. Was he moaning then?
Yeah, on the radio to his engineer, he was incredibly rude as well. And speak up. It was just. He's changed so much.
We come to the punishment. This is the problem which annoys me the most about this stuff. There's no common sense. There's no leeway. They looked up the rule that's been probably the rule book for donkey's years, that it's, a drive-through penalty. But first we have to have what the condition was. I mean, coming down the straight, you can see there's no marshals on the track. There's no burning car upside down. So if it was the first lap, then I think Lando's in a bit of trouble, because you do have to lift. But I mean, if it was the third or fourth lap, when you've been going around thinking, why are we all going through yellows, no safety car? You've also got the radio. You're telling there's a mirror on the track, Lando. There's a mirror on the track. So in fact, there was no danger, for marshals or anybody else. And so the punishment.
How do you know that, Tiff? Because
nobody was on the track. Nobody was.
Double yellows there for a reason. So
he agrees. He's committed the foul.
Yeah, but fourth lap around, and there's still double yellows, and
it's the rule.
There's nothing there.
It's the rules. It's being too much of a stickler to your rules. Because yes, if there was a huge crash going on and ambulances, marshals, then you should be banned for life, sort of thing. But in the situation they were under, surely you can say, well, 5-second penalty, because you want the race to happen. So you've got to think about the crowd of spectators and the entertainment. As in Abu Dhabi 2021, they changed the rules on the spur of the moment because Red Bull wanted a race. So they've ruined the race. As if you've given Lando 5 seconds, he probably still wouldn't have caught. But I do believe, yellow cards, I believe like 3 points on your licence. You got 12 when you miss a race.
Yep.
So if a leading driver misses a race, that's good press, good publicity. You don't spoil the race you're watching. In fact, you'd have the reserve driver watching on your day. You might lose Lando Norris for a race, but you'd get a reserve. So hit them hard with points and licenses, not ruin the race when no real danger has been created. So, you broke the rule.
I kind of disagree with you in a way, because you never know what they're going to do. So the double yellows, they might not be on that lap, but then on the next lap, a marshal might be on the track.
They don't. The rule is no marshal comes out anymore.
However, my issue is that it shouldn't have even been a double yellow. What flag do you wave if there's an obstacle on the track? Not double yellow flags. Double yellow means you're supposed to slow down to the extent where you've been prepared to stop.
Nobody uses double yellows in Britain. They're not there anymore, are they? It's just a wave.
Yeah, you still get double yellows. I
think. Don't know. What's the difference between a double wave and a single wave then?
Well, I think single yellow is slow down, and double yellow, I believe, is that you should be prepared to stop. Slow down enough that you should be prepared to stop. Okay.
Yeah, waved yellow. It's just a waved yellow. But I don't. This double yellow they have in Formula One. We don't have that around the rest of the thing. Anyway, that's not the point. He did break the rules. What I'm saying is, if you have to look at the situation, and you have to be able to change your mind and make a softer regulation, softer punishment. Let the race go on for spectators.
But isn't it a red and yellow flag? Like a red and yellow flag normally,
that's debris.
Not even a yellow flag. Yeah, exactly.
That's what they should have waved. They should have waved a yellow. Yeah.
This is my point. So it's the FIA's problem. They made the mistake, and they're punishing Lando for their mistake.
Well, yeah, you're right. It should have just been a yellow and red flag.
It should have been. It should never have been a yellow or a double yellow.
There was no
It should
crash
have
car, no marshals.
Yeah.
It was just
It's
debris on the
It's
track.
debris. Yeah. Which turned into a nightmare and ruined Lewis's already ruined race, but also Carlos's race, and of course Lando's race, because it wasn't just a 10-second drive-through, which is massively over the top. It was 35 seconds, because that's what it takes to go through the pit lane.
Oh. And the other thing I want changed.
The FIA are in bloody turmoil here.
Watching that race, the track partly caused this because so many cars were going off trying to overtake because they're all just, there's no jeopardy, off they go. It seemed like every 2 minutes we had another little white box saying, report to stewards, Albon, it was not Yuki, Albon and K-Mag, and kept on saying, noted. Then you have to wait about 10 minutes. So you're thinking, well, is one going to get disqualified and what's going to happen? Then no action needed or action needed. And in fact, towards the end of the race, which I don't even know what happened, there was a George Russell noted safety car infringement. I don't think I ever heard the result of that one, did you?
No, I didn't.
Well, it came up about 3 laps from the end of the race. I don't want to see those anymore. I don't want to be told. When someone's been penalised, just put that up. Put a penalty up, but don't put up the noted, and all that.
But Lewis Hamilton's grid box infringement at the very beginning of the race didn't come up for 19 minutes into the race to say that it's been noted under investigation.
I don't want to know. Don't tell me that.
Yeah, but what? That shouldn't take 19 minutes.
I'm trying to watch the race.
So what positives did you take out of Qatar?
Oh. Well, the sad thing is, dear old Max, it was another flipping brilliant race by Max Verstappen. Yeah, he sorted the boys out in turn 1 by being quickest through turn 1, managed his tyres and ran away with the field. Pierre Gasly had a great run to 5th. I enjoyed watching that, seeing Gasly up the front. And Guan Yu Zhao got points for Sauber, 8th place. So that's a nice story there. Lewis just melted down more and more. I'm going to park it. And then, like Lance Stroll, the team realised you've got to take your penalty this race or it'll be carried through to Abu Dhabi. So you don't want to carry up. So, oh dear, Lewis was just beating himself. I'm slow now. I want to park it. Oh, it's such a shame. Maybe he should join Ocon's, because Ocon's not going to Abu Dhabi, isn't it? The Aussie boy, somebody's doing. Jack Doohan's in. So Esteban Ocon's been dropped for Abu Dhabi.
I think he should just
not go.
Get Kimi into Abu Dhabi. I said that 3 races ago after Brazil. Forget Vegas and Qatar and Abu Dhabi. Get Kimi in. Give him that bit of, just a little bit of extra experience as well. Lewis certainly doesn't need it. He's not going to. But Lewis is fast around Yaz, so we'll see. Maybe he'll give everyone what they want and get a win at Abu Dhabi. Who knows? Anyway,
we've got to stop these rules being written. Just writing another rule every time just makes it more and more.
They should have kept that race alive. From this, they've gone from one extreme to the other, with Abu Dhabi making their own rules up. Abu Dhabi 21 to ruining a race, a really good race that could have.
But it wasn't been that good a race, but it could have been. Lando was there. Lando seemed to be slightly quicker, but he would have had to have had a penalty, so at least 4 seconds. So in 5 seconds, so he couldn't get away with no penalty.
No, exactly. But it now means that Lando and Charles Leclerc are very close in points. I think they're separated by 8 points now for P2. Not who cares about P2, but it's very close. And of course, the Constructors Championship are now going down to the wire. So a bit of pressure on McLaren now, where they really had no pressure before. With about half dozen laps to go yesterday. So without the safety cars, it would have been, and without the FIA, it would have been quite a dull race, but ended up being half exciting, certainly in the mid-pack.
Just put the VSC out. It's useful for that sort of thing, exactly that instant. Just pop the VSC out. None of this would have happened.
Yeah, I agree. Formula 2.
We had this great battle going in Formula 2 between Gabriele Bortoleto, who, of course, he's already got Sauber. He's in Formula 1. And he's battling hard with Isaac Hadjar, who also hopes he'll be in Formula 1 if Perez goes and Yuki goes up to Red Bull, as common sense will prevail. And they should put Isaac Hadjar in. So, but Hadjar, they arrived at, as I said, as Qatar were brought having this 10-point lead or 10.5-point lead. But I pointed out also in a tweet, this Formula 2, it's a weird thing. I was sort of saying Antonelli and Behrman should have just stopped racing once they got their contracts for next year, because they're making Formula 2 look a bit silly, because they qualified 10th and 11th. So you're thinking, hold on a minute, we're all raving about this Ollie Behrman and bloody hell, Antonelli, what a quick kid. And so it just points out how it's the team is more important than the driver. So instead of being a driver development or, a driver proving ground, it's more a engineer, scientist proving ground who can make a Formula 2 car, spec car, go quicker than the next team's spec car. But however, thanks to the reverse grid racing, Ollie Behrman being 10th fastest, had pole position and won the sprint race, which was nice to see him happily on the podium. But it's just wrong. So I don't know what we do about Formula 2. I don't know how we make Formula 2 more of a driver. I don't know if we can change the cars. I don't know what you do at all. I'm lost with Formula 2 at the moment. So I like to see, it being the proving ground. And yet it's not. But I suppose over the course of the season it does, because definitely, Bortoleto and Hadjar they're not the two quickest. If you think of Behrman and Antonelli should be up there. Your thoughts?
Well, they are the two quickest because they're separated by half a point for the Drivers' Championship. It goes to Abu Dhabi now with those two.
Yeah. Of course, the trouble with Behrman and Antonelli, they're in the fifth best car. See?
Prema.
Fifth best car. Not third best car, fifth best. I don't know.
Yeah, but there's no pictures on the scorecard, is there? I mean,
no, I know. Anyway,
so we had the F1 teams. Yeah, they know who the best drivers are, I'm sure, and that's why they've gone for the Behrmans and Antonellis of this world.
I know. Yeah, the team engineers will know. And as soon as they get the simulator and they get to test a Formula 1 car, you sort of know. But I mean, Behrman, of course, are dominating up to Formula 3, so he stood out massively in his lower formula. And even the first year of Formula 2, but this year he hasn't looked. It's just someone from the public, someone from a less knowledgeable fan watching that race going on, and you're thinking.
Colapinto is the one though. Colapinto did nothing in F2 at all.
No, we had some reverse grid wins.
Yeah, they don't count, do they?
They do on paper. So Hadjar only qualified 9th.
So this is the sprint. Are we talking about the sprint?
Well, it's the same for both. So he qualified. So he started second in the sprint. He actually led for a big, but he burnt his tyres up, and Behrman ran him down and overtook him. In fact, Hadjar got 4th. But in the main race, of course, we had this Bortoleto leading, and again, it was a shame because Behrman was on the longer strategy. He was on the harder tyre, and he just got the lead because all the softer tyre people had all pitted when a safety car came out.
Timing was awful.
Yeah, so that killed him. So by the time he changed his tyres after the safety car, he was down in about 13th place, I think. But Bortoleto was heading for a victory until this VSC and the incident, as I said, and he sort of jumped back out and got a 5-second penalty. So it was quite tense towards the end because he was leading and Hadjar was trying desperately to stay within 5 seconds to overtake him. And in the middle of that was Paul Aron, the Estonian driver who led the championship early on, hadn't won a race all season. He's always been quick, Aaron. He doesn't get mentioned. Yeah. He's actually now been signed up with Alpine as their reserve driver, which is good.
Okay.
So he's been quick all year, and just sometimes he's had breakdowns and bad luck. So thanks to this 5-second penalty, Aaron got his first Formula 2 win, which was quite a nice story. But, of course, Bortoleto lost 10 of his 10.5 points thanks to that ruling in a way. So he ended up with only half a point lead. Probably wasn't 10 because there's the sprint race points, which I've forgotten to add in. Gets too complicated. But the interesting thing is that after all our wishes for young drivers, of course, we had no new drivers a year ago in Formula 1. We've now, if Hadjar gets that Red Bull drive, we've got 5 young drivers joining Formula 1 next year. I mean, Ollie Behrman's already been in. So you have Behrman, we've got Behrman, Antonelli, Jack Doohan making his debut this weekend. And of course, it could be, who else won there? You had John Bortoleto. So, 5. We could have 5 new drivers next year. Which
Did you see it for the old? It would be excellent. Did you see it for the older boys like Bottas sniffing around Cadillac already? Yeah, well, of course, I would consider Cadillac.
Ricardo as well. Ricardo's up there. I could be experienced. You'll need an experienced driver, won't you? So anyway, Formula 2 was interesting, and it goes down the wire. So it's an exciting race between Bortoleto and Hadjar. But who's got the best car? And who's got the third best car? That seems to be what's all important nowadays. They're all the same, aren't
think
they? They've all got the same
it's,
cars in Formula
it's
2.
out of those two guys. Yeah, but we've tried same series racing. What was that one they did with the different countries? A1 racing, was it?
Yeah, it was quite good. That was for a while. That was quite good. Actually, one point about Formula 2 must mention John Bennett. That's a fantastic story because he came second in the British GB3 Championship this year with several wins, but got pipped to the post. Didn't get that Autosport call because the champion and it was tight. He's doing Formula 3 next year with Van Amersfoort, the Dutch team. But he'd been testing with them down in Spain. They suddenly said, would you like to do the Formula 2 race in Qatar? Well, some money was needed. But anyway, he jumped in from GB3 to a Formula 2 car and only qualified 19th out of the 22 cars. He got up to 12th place in the sprint race from 19th. Then in the main race, he stalled. The most embarrassing thing you can do as a racing driver. Had to be pushed into the pits to get plugged into restarted and came out just as the leaders went by. So he was a lap down in last. So last, you can't be more last than he was. But somehow, like in IndyCar or NASCAR, he must have had some good engineering because they had 2 full course safety car periods. And somehow he not only got onto the lead lap, but ended up climbing to 8th place.
Wow.
I mean, what a fantastic story from a lap down and dead last to finish 8th in your second ever Formula 2 race. So a nice story. So well done, John. He's out again, I think, in Abu Dhabi, so maybe he can qualify a bit higher and prove it wasn't a fluke.
So he should do well in Formula 3 by the sound of things.
Well, yeah, he's very talented. But the trouble is, with these 5 kids joining Formula 1 now, the sort of next 5 that are in Formula 2 and Formula 3 now thinking, oh, shit, they're going to hold those seats for 10 years each. So we've had this nice clean out. But if we have a clean out this year, if we got to clean out, so we lose Perez, K-Mag, Zhao, Bottas and Colapinto. For all Colapinto.
And we've lost Ricciardo.
Already, Ricciardo stroke Colapinto. So who's the next lot to be washed out? Because otherwise all the kids in Formula 2. No, I've already got those out. I've lost him already. Hadjar's in. If Hadjar goes in and Perez comes out, I said that's where we got 5 youngsters.
But Bortoletto needs to get a drive because you can't stay in Formula 2, can you, if you win the championship?
No, he's in Formula 1 already. I've told you. You're not listening. He's a Sauber. You're not catching up. You're forgetting.
I'm telling you, I'm recapping what you said.
He got the Sauber drive. So he's in. They're all in. Sauber in. So then we've got to look at who's going to open any doors, seats. Obviously, Lewis. Maybe Hulk maybe going at some time. But there's going to be a few years now where there aren't going to be spaces for these kids. So the timing, the timing. Oh, I wish. Yes,
Alonso won't be there much longer.
That's good. So yeah, Hamilton, Alonso, Hulkenberg. Stroll can't last forever, can he? So yeah, that could be 4 seats. Yeah, there could be 4 seats coming up. Maybe Leclerc out of the Ferrari, Sainz, maybe. If he doesn't enjoy Williams.
Another person, this is very contentious, that out of the blue could give up Formula 1 is Max Verstappen. Honestly,
he loves teasing you. He loves teasing you.
Do you think so?
He's got at least 5 more years. At least 5 more years. He'd love to do Le Mans. This is what I love about Max. You know, he does. He likes motorsport. He'd like to do Indy, but he'd like to do Le Mans stuff. So, and he's a kid, isn't he? He does 24-hour sim racing with his mates and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a complete
rally.
geek.
Does rally driving. You're not supposed to tell anyone about that. It's supposed to be top secret. No, he does a lot of rallies, and his father does as well. But
so interesting stuff in Formula 1. Really looking forward to next year. And
next year, I can't wait. Drivers. I can't wait for next year. I
F1
hope the
Academy.
FIA don't mess it up.
F1 Academy.
Congratulations.
Abby Pulling by coming second, secured the title. And it's funny, you should look at it. It's so much fun. You know, they're up there, all her friends there, managers and dad, and it's all glory at lovely settings. You know, and next year she's going to be that Brands Hatch, the GB3, and that's the real challenge for Abby Pulling. He's going to kick off next year. It's all very well, this F1 Academy. And the front 5 in that race was separated by 27 seconds. There were just 10 seconds between each driver. Because Dorian Pan went out and won by a mile. Pulling didn't need to win the championship. Was second. Maya Weg was third. Al Kubasi fourth. And we had Alicia Palmowski, who was a Formula GB4 winner this year. She was given a one-off chance, qualified 4th, finished 5th. So a good one for her. Maybe she could be in F1 Academy next year. But they have got to, in the end, come back and face the boys. So it's going to be fantastic. I think a lot of eyes will be on GB3 next year to see if Pulling can pull it off from there. But they've still got 2 more races. The Saturday, they didn't get their second race. A Porsche flattened the barriers on Sunday morning. And they didn't get their second race. So sort of Palmowski, who was probably hoping to go a bit better in the second race. I don't know if she's got to drive down in Abu Dhabi because it's an extra car. They run a sort of a spare car occasionally.
What nationality is she? Is she Polish or?
No, she's British.
Oh, British. Oh, nice.
Obviously, a few descendants above, but she's an English girl. So that was the end of F1 Academy, short and sweet. They'll be down in Abu Dhabi as well.
But big congratulations to Abby.
It's wonderful to win it. But Marcia Garcia, who won it last year, beating Abby, had a season of what's it called, Formula Regional, and couldn't get in the top 20. And she's already said, I'm quitting single seaters and trying to go into a GT drive. So it's a huge step when you come out of these lovely little cliquey Formula One academies, which are attracting more girls to go karting. So maybe Palmowski's the next one. Who knows? That's the point of it. And we'll see what happens.
Good stuff. What's coming up next week?
Abu Dhabi, of course, Abu Dhabi, the Formula One, Formula Two, and Formula Academy. Lewis's farewell with Mercedes. I hope it goes well. Wouldn't it be lovely if he overtook Max Verstappen on the last lap to take a win at Abu Dhabi? Dream on. That would be in a film. A film. If that was what's the F1 film called with the actor? What's
Drive
his
to
name?
Survive. Oh yeah.
No, the Formula One film. If Brad Pitt,
Yeah.
if that would be the script, I would have Lewis overtaking Max on the last lap. And as they go by, as he changed down a gear to overtake him on the straight, he'd give him a finger as he went by. Hollywood's real motorsport. And Formula E comes alive. The 2014-15 Formula E Championship kicks off. If you're interested at all, I think it's going to be on ITV4. I think they're getting back on telly. It's on Saturday, not Sunday. I checked out the teams. I've done a little research of the teams there. Look, all the teams and drivers, just to find out what's to see. Formula E, I'm not forgetting you. They're raving about
Mexico.
Formula this year.
No, not Mexico. Where is it?
They're in Brazil, Sao Paulo.
Brazil.
2 drivers have left. We've lost Sasha Fenestrez, who's gone back to Japan, and Darren Daruvala. He's out. We've got young 20-year-old Taylor Barnard having a full season with McLaren. Of course, he had a couple of races last year when Sam Bird broke his fingers. And David Beckman, the Porsche test driver, gets promoted to a race driver with ERT. Dan Ticktum's got a Porsche engine this year. Team name has changed to something else, ERT. So maybe Ticktum, who struggled at the back of the field last year, might be fun. We've got 4 British drivers. I think only about 3 teams are the same pairings. They do change seats a lot in Formula E every season. They're all raving about it. It's quicker to 62 than a Grand Prix car. There you go. It's got 4-wheel drive now. 4-wheel drive.
That's all Tesla people say. That's all they quote.
They still haven't, though, put the pit stops in. This was promised over a year ago. They're going to come in, get plugged in for 30 seconds with some supercharger, and then go again. They rehearsed it on their test weekend, which wasn't at Valencia sadly because of the floods, but was at wherever they went, Estoril. They pretended to plug in and had a pit stop for 20 seconds, but I don't think it's happening. But they're very excited about their 4-wheel drive and the fact that they're faster than the Formula One car. Yeah.
I prefer no 4-wheel drive personally, but
exactly
for them, 4-wheel drive seems to be going backwards for racing. But there you go. Because typically around a racetrack, Mr. Needell, rear-wheel drive is faster than 4-wheel drive, or 2-wheel drive is faster than 4-wheel drive. Is it not?
Not anymore. I think if you
not these little twists.
If you get
not these twisty
Formula One, they'd use it. But because like in hypercars, they're only allowed to do over 80 or 90 miles an hour, aren't they? To make sure, because the American GP one, their hypercars are rear-wheel drive only. And the manufacturer 4-wheel drive systems can only put the 4-wheel drive in at over 100 miles an hour. That sort of trick, I don't know. It's all about.
Lastly, just an observation. It's the 2nd of December today. My goodness, that's late in the season. Is it 9th of December or 8th of December for the final Grand Prix of the season? It's never normally that late, is it?
I think it is. I don't know. When was Abu Dhabi 21? Anyway,
on that note, see you next week.
Also, of course, because I've driven a super Formula car around half of Abu Dhabi, I'll be able to feel what the drivers are going through as they come under the hotel. to be screened.
I'm going to cut off now. Don't need any more of this.
Well, that was a good rant anyway. I feel much better for getting all that off my chest. I'm sure Yerry won't be happy. Bye, Yerry. Happy Christmas,
I was wax
Yerry.
lyrical. I was wax lyrical about Max. See you next week.